Okay, so today we're going to be continuing on with my favourite slash least favourite books for the first half of the year. And today we are doing least favourites slash my worst reads for the first half of 2021. Now, a very interesting statistic that did not occur up to this point last year is that in the first half of 2021, I gave no books 1 star, which is really, really good. It goes to show that there were at least some good things about every single book that I read. I have not read an absolute dud yet. That is, I have not completed an absolute dud yet. I've DNF'd plenty of books, which DNF, in case you don't know, stands for did not finish. I picked up a book. I got to a certain point where I didn't want to continue on, so I put it down and picked up something else. But as far as all the books I completed, they all had at least a minimum of 2 stars. But it didn't mean that I didn't have some really big complaints about them, so we're going to get into those ones today. This will be my top 10 worst books for the first half of 2021. Coming in at number 10, getting 3 stars from me, was this book, Love Clancy by Richard Glover. The basic premise of this book is that we are following Clancy, a dog who has been purchased after he was born, and he writes letters home to his family, his mama dog and the pups, his siblings, to let them know how he is doing. It sounds like an adorable read, and I think on surface level, it is an adorable read. My problem with this book, though, is it is rather formulaic, to the point where you can absolutely predict the formula once you get to a quarter of the way through the book. And that just turned this book from being a really adorable read to an overly predictable, monotonous read, and I just did not appreciate that personally. Coming in at number 9 is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is an adult horror book, and the premise of this book is that we're following Noemi. Noemi's father receives a letter from Noemi's cousin, who recently got married to some guy. She's living with him, and she's going through a whole world of issues. So he sends Noemi off to see if she can find out what's going on there and see if she can help her cousin. So it sounds like an amazing premise, and a lot of people really love this book, so I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. This is just literally my own opinion. So here's my qualm with this book. I am not a slow-paced reader. I don't enjoy books that are incredibly slow-paced. And the first 3/4 of this book are exactly that. I love books where I'm running alongside my characters, so those are like medium-paced books. But if I had to choose between a fast-paced book and a slow-paced book, I prefer a fast-paced one where I'm running to catch up, rather than I'm running ahead of the characters and I'm waiting for them to catch up with me. Coming in at number 8 is another 3-star book, and that is this book, Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson. So there's not a lot I can say about this book, so I'm not going to give you a premise. I'm just going to say that this book is a novella that is attached to the Stormlight Archive series. So if you've read that, this is a novella that you can read that kind of fits in with that world. This book is marketed as an adult fantasy, and I highly, highly, highly disagree. We are not only following a character that is of middle grade age, which some people feel that the age of our protagonist should reflect the age of the age rating, and it's advertised as adult. But also, the book to me, not everyone, but to me, reads as a middle grade book. I went into this book expecting an adult fantasy, and because I've read such an abundance of different genres and different age ratings within those genres, whenever I go into a book, I want to know what the age rating is so I know what to expect. With an adult fantasy, I'm expecting a big story. I'm expecting mature themes. I'm expecting complex situations to play out. When I'm going into a middle grade fantasy, I'm expecting something fun and easy and whimsical, and maybe there'll be some plot conveniences along the way. So I went into this book expecting it to be an adult fantasy because that's what it is published as, and was highly let down by the fact that it's definitely not. Sadly, my next third star, coming in at number 7, is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is a YA LGBTIQ plus book. Before I go into this, I need to stress, I love Adam Silvera as an LGBTIQ plus author. They Both Die at the End, not only for me, but I think for a lot of people actually, is considered to be Adam Silvera's least best book for his LGBTIQ plus books. And I would agree with that. The book starts off really well, don't get me wrong. It hooked me in from not only the first chapter or the first page, but from the first sentence. I was hooked right from the get-go, literally the first sentence. And then unfortunately, the more the book went along, the more that certain things happened that I just really did not appreciate, certain choices that Adam Silvera made. One of them being, I feel this book should have been a dual perspective. It was multi-perspective, and also it became a little mundane the more we went along. Coming in at number 6 is The Beauty and the Beast by Gabrielle Suzanne Bardot de Villeneuve. Okay, I was really excited to get into this book because I love the Disney film adaptation of The Beauty and the Beast, the animated version. My issue with this book is not the plot. I think the plot was pretty decent. My issue was with the writing style. So Gabrielle Suzanne Bardot de Villeneuve wrote this book a very long time ago, and that is absolutely fine, but I gave this book a mood reading 3-star rating because of the writing style. It was extremely hard for me to read. Thee, thy, thou, thou, Shakespearean, ye old English, it's all in there, and I have a major issue when reading books like this because of the fact that I literally have to mentally translate every single sentence as I go along. So I need to read the sentence, translate what the author is trying to say, move on to the next sentence, translate what they're trying to say, move on to the next sentence, and it just becomes a whole lot of work that, quite frankly, I don't want to do when I'm reading a book. I'm reading a book for pleasure, for fun, for entertainment, and I don't want to be doing a whole lot of translating work while reading it. We've now hit the halfway mark, and this will be my final 3-star book. Coming in at number 5 is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Now, I know you guys are so disappointed in me, especially my friends who are American booktubers. I love you guys, and I definitely respect your opinion on this and on Marissa Meyer as a whole. One of the things I love, though, about readers is that we all accept each other for who we are. We all have different tastes and opinions with books. So I'm gonna be brief, and I'm sorry, and feel free to skip this section if you don't want to hear me say why I didn't like Cinder, but for those of you who are Australian and you don't know about this series, let me quickly tell you. So to acquire this book, I had to actually purchase it and get it delivered to me from the United States because this series is not available to be sold in a bookstore in Australia. And this series, called the Lunar Chronicles series, is a series that Marissa Meyer wrote to be retellings of original fairy tale classics. Cinder is the retelling of Cinderella. But for me, it just did not work. Now, the ending was well done. My fear for Marissa Meyer is that the average person picking up this book who, like me, doesn't like books that are monotone, might DNF this book before they get to that amazing ending. And now we are getting into my lowest rated books of the first half of the year. These are my only 2-star reads for the first half of the year. So I have things to say, so get ready, because Mr. Francy is going to get a little bit emotional. Here we go. Coming in at number 4 is this book, Every Value Break by Peter Swanson. This is an adult thriller. This book was on my 2021 most anticipated books of the year list, and it just let me down so much. The reason why it let me down is because it's marketed as an adult thriller, and in my mind, there was really nothing thrilling about this book at all. I think there was one moment where we had our characters in a position where things could have been a little bit thrilling, and I was on the edge of my seat for about a nanosecond, And it was like Peter Swanson just kind of indirectly turned around, and was basically indirectly saying to his readers, oh no, don't worry, I just wanted it to be scary for a second, but don't worry, it's okay. And that just did not work for me. If you're going to write a thriller, I want to be thrilled by your thriller. And I understand that that's not just the point. It's not just that a thriller should thrill you, but the mystery should at least be intriguing. And when we get to the reveal for whatever the mystery is within the thriller, because most thrillers are mysteries, and there's a mystery and then there is a reveal, that's just how thrillers work, the reveal should be incredibly amazing, and it should be either something that you were able to work out, or if you didn't work it out, you were still really impressed by the reveal. I didn't like a lot of this book. By the time we got to the halfway mark, nothing was happening. It was so incredibly boring that it just incredibly let me down. And then, as I said, when something finally happened, it happened for like 2 seconds, and then Peter Swanson just flipped the narrative to make us right as rain and feel like everything was totally fine and all was right, and it completely let me down. But if that comes in at number 4 for my 2-star reads, then what about the rest of them? Coming in at number 3, my second 2-star book is this book, Inner Holidays by Christina Lauren, which is an adult romance, and to get technical, an adult straight romance. For those of you who don't know, I have the goal to read 6 straight romance books by the end of the year, and 12 LGBTIQ plus books. In order to stick with my 6 straight adult books read by the end of the year goal, I purchased this book to read it because when I was told about the premise, I was told that this book invokes the Groundhog Day trope where we have the day repeating itself. Okay, here's my issue. First of all, I went into this book, as I said, because of the Groundhog Day trope, and I was bitterly let down. I think the day might have repeated 3 times. There are other people who say that the day repeats many, many times, but I did not see that the day repeated many, many times. I saw that it repeated 3 times, and that didn't work for me, because if you've seen Groundhog Day, I've only seen the film once and I know this. The guy goes through many, many, many repeated days. That is the point. That is how we got the name the Groundhog Day trope, because you experience the same day over and over and over and over and over and over again. But if you're only going to do it 3 times, then really it's a desperate cry and plea to say that this invokes the Groundhog Day trope, because it barely invokes the Groundhog Day trope. My second issue with this book was the romance. Because this book is an adult romance and written by Christina Lauren, which is an authoring duo of Christina, one woman, and Lauren, another woman, who co-author romance books together, and because this is not in any way, shape or form their first rodeo, I feel that I absolutely can be harsh here. The purpose of this book is to write a romance. The problem with the romance is that it is not believable. It happens way too quickly, and it just does not make any sense at all. And this completely frustrated me. For my first romance read of the year, I was so disappointed. Okay, so let's get on to the silver medal. Coming in at number 2, my second worst book of the first half of 2021 would have to be this book, The Gilded Ones by Namina Fauna, which is an adult fantasy. Okay, I had many issues with this book. First of all, I am not a fan of books that are marketed as a certain genre because it contains a little bit of this genre, so therefore it is this genre. And I've seen that happen many, many times, but most notably with fantasy. When you have a book that is 1/10 fantasy and it's still called a fantasy, that annoys me. Fantasy should not be the dominating genre of this book. This book should have been marketed as a dystopian, because we are dealing predominantly with a world that is a rather tyrannical type world, and so it's definitely a dystopian. The fantasy elements are definitely rather lackluster, and so I just did not appreciate going into this book expecting to get a full-on fantasy, only to get a 1/10 of a fantasy when it's marketed as a fantasy. My second issue is a word that Namina Fauna kept using, and it just did not work for me, and she used it ad nauseum. And that is either the word sniff or sniffed. And I say this in the context of a character looking a certain way and doing a certain thing. For example, How are you today, said character A. Character B sniffed and said, or how are you doing today, said character A. I'm fine, sniffed character B. And it comes up like 30 times in the book that it got to the point where it was a little game for me. Like, okay, we're sniffed. I've turned the page. We're sniffed. Oh, they're sniffed. Of course it is, because they're all sniffing. If you are going to write this word, can you write it in a way that it makes sense? So if you're going to say a character bent down and sniffed a flower, that makes sense. But if you're going to say that character B sniffed and said something hoity-toity-ish, no. And coming in at number 1 is Legendary, book number 2 in the Caravel series by Stephanie Garber. Interestingly enough, Caravel has received a ton of praise from me this month with my first half of 2021 books. Book 1 was incredible. But book number 2... No. Issues. I've spoken also about the Suzanne Collins curse. Yes, because dear Miss Suzanne Collins wrote The Hunger Games, and then book 3 in The Hunger Games really let me down because she caught lightning in a bottle with the first 2 books, then she smashed that lightning she caught in the bottle on the floor and threw the shards into the trash can. And so I don't like when authors do this, so I call it the Suzanne Collins curse. Stephanie Garber fell to the Suzanne Collins curse. The game is what makes book number 1 work. She shoved the game aside so that we could have a character-driven book about 2 characters that are slowly falling in love. But it's a fantasy, not a romance. So, go figure. But that's it. Those are the worst books that I read for the first half of 2021. What would be yours? Let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it, letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading!